so let's lower the volume. I don't chase the outrage, I don't rent a side. I've lived long enough to know noise loves to lie. I talk about the days, I talk about the news, I talk about the things you don't get in sound bites or views. I'm not here to win you, I'm not here to scare. I'm just standing still long enough to notice what's there. Sane in Colombia, that's where I land, watching the world with both feet in the sand. Sane in Colombia, no script, no plea, just a man, a moment, and what I see. If it's worth thinking about, we'll think about it. Sane in Colombia. I didn't leave because I was angry, I left because everything got loud. Every voice trying to win the moment, nobody listening to the ground. I wanted space, not distance from reality, distance from the noise, pretending to be reality. I stepped off the treadmill, left the shouting behind. No flashing banners in my head, just space to think and time. They sell you urgency, they sell you fear. Every voice is louder, but nothing's clear. I don't listen to what's promised, I watch what happens. I don't follow tone, I follow patterns. No borrowed fear, no rented rage, just facts moving across the page. Watch the bills, choices form, watch who bends, watch who storms. Signals matter, noise is cheap, what they say versus what they keep. This is sane in Colombia, where the volume comes down. No talking points, no marching sound. I don't chase the noise, I don't rent my mind. I step back far enough to see the design. Coffee on the table, mountains in the frame. Thinking for myself, that's how I stay sane. Living sane in Colombia. 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 Sunlight spills through the cafe door. Mic goes live like it's done before. 9 years deep in these mountain towns, we brew the truth, not just sit around. I came for a visit and stayed for the view, but the soul of this place, it just pulls you through. Mornings in Finlandia, nights in Salento. Life don't move fast, but man, it's full tempo. This ain't a pitch, it's real as it gets. From lost bags to love and bureaucratic regrets. No script here, just the sound of real lives told live every week under Colombian skies. It's coffee time lived from the heart of Quindío, where the screen fades out and the real stories flow from expats who landed and locals who guide. We laugh, we vent, we cry, we ride. It's not about views, it's about the vibe. Just raw conversation, live and alive. Got folks tuning in from every time zone, asking what's it like to make this place your own. It's mango trees, it's rent debates, it's finding peace past the clickbait gates. Some days we talk visas, some days we just breathe and sip dark roast while the valley grieves through mudslides, marches, markets, and mess. We show up with stories, no more, no less. It's coffee time lived, not just a name on a screen. It's 9 years of mornings and everything between. No hype, just heart and a decent brew. A place for the honest, the warm, the true. Not selling dreams, just sharing the ride from right here in Quindío live. Where the air stands still. So bring your mug, your doubts, your days. We'll light 'em up in soft cafe rays. It's not a podcast, it's a porch light glow. It's home in a headline, a yes and a no. It's coffee time live. Come as you are from my table in Colombia to wherever you are.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Colombia. Going on 9 years of Coffee Time Live. Started out in Ecuador, then moved to Manizales, and then here in Armenia for the past 6+ years. Oh, not important. Got to turn this phone off. It's very distracting. Just sometimes it's maybe important, you know. There's emergencies once in a while. Ayabel, let's get to where I can. Yes. Okay, that must be. Should I continue to tell the temp and exchange at the start of each coffee time? See, it's always the same. Well, the exchange rate isn't necessarily, but I didn't prepare anything, but it's currently 71 degrees. We're going to have a high of 76. We'll have a low of probably about 63, maybe 62. Pretty much always the same. The exchange rate is 36.40. And I know there's people making money off the cost of living and doom and gloom. And I'm seeing a lot of misrepresented things like um, the the minimum salary had a crazy increase, which it did. Absolutely no basis for it. It's insane. It will have an effect, but people are saying it's going to have like a cost of living increase for us of 18% and just crazy stuff. And it's just it's not like that. Will we have a cost of living increase over it? It will have some effect. But you got to understand that when you have such a huge increase without warning, without cause, not based on anything in particular, except we had somebody who was trying to get brownie points and had the power to make that decree through a technicality, what you're going to have is businesses are going to have to drop people off. We know that happens all over. Happened in California, for example. Except in California, you've got this huge safety net. So if they're out of a job, you got all kinds of benefits. You've got rent benefits and you've got food benefits and you got unemployment. You got all kinds of stuff. And so the money then goes to the person who continues to spend the money in the economy. Here, you have absolute emergency assistance, but nowhere near to the level of that. Nowhere near to the level of that. And so when you have a whole bunch of people in an area that lose their jobs because the business simply can't afford it, particularly all at once like that, those people won't have money to spend in the economy. And it's going to put a huge drain. And what happens when you have a huge drain and less disposable income? The people that got the raise, that retain their jobs, won't be able to counteract for the people that don't. And that tends to drag prices down. So it's a mess that happened. But this mindless interpretation that that's going to go direct to the cost of living, freak people out over it. It's just nuts. You're just showing your ignorance, dude. I know who you are, and it was pathetic. Anyway, it's bad. It's bad all around that it happened, but let's not make it something that it's not. I get accused of clickbait all the time, except my topics are always legitimate. That was clickbait. B Nick, how are you? Good morning. Olga, hello. Owen, sound video good. Awesome. Thank you. Spanglish Angler, greetings from Tampa Bay. Counting the days to be back on the farm. You're back and forth, and it's awesome. I wish you would let me know when you were here when I had my car. I really wanted to drive out there. Mr. Hutch, this is the good William. How are you, Mr. William? Kind of miss you, although we didn't see each other that much when you were here, but I could see when I missed you. Renee, good day from NATO headquarters. Yes, how are you? Isn't it nice that NATO won't have to go to war with the United States over Greenland? That was so funny. If you had seen on my my personal channel, I talked about Trump's method of negotiation, and you'd have to be blind not to know exactly what he was doing. He was trying to get something to happen in Greenland that would have been very difficult. And by letting people think that he could even possibly invade, I mean, who believes that kind of stuff? It's all just his method of negotiation. He wrote about it many years ago. The art of the deal. And he does it over and over and over again. And then people, for whatever reason they have, because it can't be that stupid, but they take what he says as That's what it is. He's going to invade. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And it always boils down to he wasn't going to do that, but he was trying to get something else. And by being outrageous, he got people to talk about it, and it got him to the end goal quickly. Anyway, we're not about that, but it just the NATO headquarters triggered me, and it made me laugh because the whole thing I thought was hysterical. Anyway, today it's not going to be so much of me giving you kind of a lecture on things. I'm just going to tell you about some things I've noticed that maybe I didn't realize it was happening as it went, but changes that have kind of taken me over about living in Colombia. And so, excuse me, I'm going to go in that direction. Mr. Zell, well, Greenland had first strike on U.S. was sending all this cold weather. Absolutely. Well, not here, but yeah. Little reminder. Hey, we're here. All right. Oh, my book. Here's my book. Book number 1. The other 2 are novellas from different viewpoints based on this book. Yes, I'm answering a couple questions I got. So here's the book. This is the main book. This is the nonfiction book where the 2 novellas are fiction. And what's it about? It's actually kind of complicated because that's nonfiction, but it's about the idea that civilizations may have risen and disappeared many times over hundreds of thousands of years. We all know that's a theory out there, right? Instead of them all collapsing in disasters, meteorites and ice ages and all that stuff, perhaps some became advanced enough to plan for their exit. Maybe they stored their knowledge and technology somewhere safe, left almost no evidence behind, because over the years it's just going to disappear. And maybe they vanished on purpose. The book asks if that's why we don't find signs of earlier advanced worlds. Well, that was the idea that I had originally. Since I came up with that original idea, they've actually found a number of signs of civilizations pre 20,000 years ago. But it seemed like a good idea at the time, and I think it's still a pretty good topic. And I'm very happy with the little novellas. They're short, quick reads, but that's what it is. So those of you asking, I saved it for here because there's, what's wrong with a little selfish self-promotion or shameless self-promotion. All right. Personally, not much going on, although I did get, for me, some pretty earth-shattering, in a good way, health information. There's been a lot of, well, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but basically I got feedback yesterday that the rehab I've been going through has been all wrong. It's part of the reason I've been having these issues, and I've been given a whole new set of tasks about the rehab. And so upon further review, yes, Buffalo Bills, upon further review, I may be okay. I might squeeze another 10, 12 years out of this. We'll see. I mean, we'll know, but it's been little confession here. It's been difficult for all these months not knowing. And the last thing I was told was, I'll be lucky if I make it a year. Yeah, what a thing to say. It reminds me when I had cancer and they're outside the door of my room and they're talking about how they're going to tell me that I got 6 months to live. And here I am 12 years later, so, but this stuff happens. It's how it is. They believe what they believe. But now, after some deep review and other opinions, and I got with the VA in the United States also, and there was a collaboration with a doctor there, with one here, all of this stuff. And basically, it was getting people to really pay attention to the details. And out of that, they gave me a whole here's what we did, here's what's wrong, here's why what you're doing isn't working and it's making things worse, even though that's what they told you to do. That would typically be the thing to do. Here's what you're going to do from now on. Here's the medicine that you need to take. And if you do this over the course of about 6 weeks, you're going to notice some dramatic changes. What a nice thing to hear. So is it all true? I don't know. I mean, nobody knows this stuff, but at least it's something positive, and it's a lot easier to live with something like that than to live with, I don't know if tomorrow's even going to be there because you were told it probably won't be. So that's a bit of my personal news, maybe more than you wanted to hear, but I'd rather share good news than the oh, poor me kind of stuff. If I had told you specifically things that I had been led to believe prior, it would have, your mind would have been in the same place mine was, which was not a good place. It's hard to stay cheerful, as a matter of fact. Anyway, let's get to some headlines. Weird headlines today. Good news about your health. Yes, thank you. I'm pretty happy with it. And the best part is it all made sense. They were able to tell me things that I hadn't even fully shared because it's stuff that they know. They're cardiologists and they see things, and it's not all like one thing. It can go this way, it can go that way. This person, that person. I don't know. I never had heart attacks before that I knew of, and so I was in one category and they put me in another, and it was nice. Oh yeah, all right. We're on headlines, aren't we? I don't think you tuned in for that. Oh, by the way, before I get to that, I got a very generous donation this morning just before I came on from RG Summers and Company. I'm not sure who that is, although I've gotten emails and stuff before. I remember the name of that business in the past. I don't remember who it's connected to, but it was a very nice contribution to the channel and greatly appreciated. I think because I'm on Rumble, and Rumble is now paying a lot of the basic costs of the channel, much of the contributions kind of dried up, and it's okay. I don't fault anybody as long as I can swing it, because my view of it is different now than it was in the past. If it doesn't pay for itself, I'm just not going to do it anymore, because I was using all the time for that when I could have been out having fun. Well, here I am, far more appreciative of this channel when I was kind of locked in my apartment and couldn't really go out anywhere, but I had this. And so the research and the preparation and the books. So between this and the books, it's how I didn't sit around and go crazy or end up potato whatever watching TV all the time. It's like sitting in a chair working on this, but it gave me something very useful and rewarding to do. And so my feelings about it changed. So now, okay, Rumble is paying about half of the cost. And if it has to come out of my pocket, so be it, because there's so much in it for me. Plus, I'm not pretty. I don't think I'm entertaining. I am informative. With a lot of people who've been watching me for years, I I've become a habit, and I appreciate that. Um, yeah, imagine, man, this channel would kill if I just had a pretty girl instead of me. But it's how it is. All right, first headline. Under the argument of energy sovereignty, Colombia suspends energy sales to Ecuador amid growing bilateral tensions. This is kind of fascinating, and it just popped up over the last couple of days. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but Ecuador went into debt by the billions to have, I think it was six dams to generate electricity in Ecuador. They went into debt to China for these. And what happened was all but one quickly became non functioning and non repairable to the extent that the entire dam, the concrete had cracks everywhere. Short of tearing it apart and doing it over again, they were worthless, but they still carried the debt. There's one left. It's functioning, but it has a lot of problems. Well, this was the big plan for, to generate electricity for Ecuador because of it's been growing and they've been falling short. Well, now that's not there. And so they've started last year having brownouts and blackouts. And so, because we're neighbors, they started buying electricity from Colombia. Now, Colombia's had a surplus of electricity, but they actually had to shuffle things around to, I remember reading about this last year. It wasn't like, well, we got all this excess energy, so we're going to send the electric to Ecuador. In order to assist Ecuador with the level that they needed, their bare minimum, but there were some things they had to do here to compensate for it. So it wasn't just no problem. It was a problem. Plus, they gave them a great price. So it was like, yeah, neighbor helping neighbor kind of thing. Well, this brings me to the next headline. Trade relations with Ecuador raise concerns about potential impacts on the business sector in Quindío. So here's a bridge to that headline. A few days ago, Ecuador decided, despite the agreement that these Andean countries have about visas and all that kind of stuff, like you don't need visas. It's kind of a European Union almost, you can pass borders. And well, despite their past agreements, they decided to slap a tariff on Colombia for all goods coming because they say it's Colombia's fault they're having all these drug problems in Ecuador. Well, Colombia is certainly part of it, but it's Ecuador's fault that they're having all these problems in Ecuador. They just got partners of criminals in Colombia to help them along with it. But it's not like Colombia came and pushed it down their throat. But they decided to put tariffs on. I guess they stood back and watched the United States using it for various things to great success. But in this case, it's the club without the carrot. It's there's no real end game to it. He just slapped it on. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't just work on its own. And all they did was cause Colombia, who has been providing their electric needs still, to say, no, we're going to, yeah, okay, fine, you can do that, but we're turning the switch off. No more electric funk. Although they said it very nicely because we're in South America and everybody says things nicely, they said, well, we've found that we have greater need here. And so, they put it in a nice way, but then they didn't tie it to the tariff, even though it came the next day. Yeah. So we got this little tiff going on. This one here is about Quindío, although Quindío is actually kind of part of the problem. Because of the tariff, it's going to affect businesses here. However, out of Quindío alone, by US dollars, there's $2.4 million a year, which is big for Condillo. Positive trade deficit. In other words, they make that much more out of Ecuador than Ecuador makes out of Condillo. And so, for Ecuador to want to balance that out kind of makes sense, although they do it countrywide. But the headline is about this is going to have some negative effects on businesses, so hang on to your hat. Okay, this next one, I have it titled Bad Mom. I did these a while ago. So what? Oh, yeah. So this wonderful example of a mother is accused of using her son to commit robbery at a commercial establishment. So she taught her 9-year-old son how to steal, and she took him out supposedly on the first time. Who knows? First time caught anyway. Took him out on a trial run where he tried to slip a high-end cell phone, up his sleeve, and got caught. And in talking to them, it turns out that she's taught him, this is what she taught him to do. So obviously they're not looking at a 9-year-old kid as a problem. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with her. All right. This one, it says Genoa, but it's Enova. This is the translator that does that. Enova, which is a very small town in the south end of Condillo. I've done a video there, maybe two. I think two. And interesting town, very cool town, very traditional. You don't see all the girls running around with tattoos, and it's almost in its own world. There's really one good route to get there, and half the time it's impassable. Which is why it's the way it is. But I thought this was kind of cute. They've got school transport has been an issue there, and they managed to get together with all these farmers who not for tourists' sake, but for farming's sake, they have all these Jeeps. It's a thing here. And so they all have agreed to come and provide transport, take the kids back and forth from mostly their farm homes, because in town they can walk, but it's very rural there and it's very spread out. It's all jungle. A lot of coffee, plantain, all kinds of tropical stuff. And I thought it was kind of cool that, they've got all these volunteer Jeep buses. And let's see, this one kind of sad, but kind of happy. You look at the picture on the left, this was a horse they found. It was a horse rescue. His name is Victor. He lives up to his name. He almost died, and today he has a home full of love. On the left, that was a year ago when they got him. And on the right, through all kinds of medical situations, treating very specific issues that he had, and diseases and worms and all kinds of stuff, and feeding him. He's now looking fine, looking like a really nice looking horse. Most of the headlines were about dogs and cats, this horse. They're animal crazy here, which I like it. I appreciate it. Okay, and my last headline is 2 suspected drug dealers arrested with 1,000 doses and almost a kilo of cocaine right here in Armenia. And I'll show you on the map where. Now, this is Armenia. It's kind of narrow and pointy at the top. Then it kind of goes down to a fat bottom. Fat bottom, girl. Okay, so we run down to the bottom. And if you look, if you can make it out, there's a marker. I got a red arrow pointing to it with a number 1. And that's where the guy was going around with these packages of single doses, 1,000 of them, to sell throughout that barrio. That's the Santander barrio. That's not a great place to go. And a lot of times I'll have people not from here looking at apartments on the internet, and they'll see apartments that look really nice, but they're awful cheap. And 9 times out of 10, that's where they are. And that's why they're cheap. That's why you have nice apartments, but nobody wants to rent. That's why. It's just not the best place. And we've got four areas like that. And then this other one, all the way down at the corner, which is almost not Armenia. It's so far out there. That's number 2. And that's where they found the guy with the kilo. And it turns out they found him by catching the first guy. The supply comes through him. Now, I don't know how far they're going to be able to trace it back from him, but this happened right away. And so I don't know. It was mentioned that I don't mention enough about crime. Well, there's not a lot to talk about, but this is the kind of stuff. I mean, it's kind of petty. Things like this are very isolated. And when you hear about a murder, somebody was shot or something, it's always to do with these little micro traffickers. These, 3 or 4 people form their own little gang and they sell little bits of dope here and there, or they do loan sharking. That's a big thing, is the loan sharking. And it's all contained within that. None of that stuff rubs off on the rest of Armenia, or almost never does. Did once about 4 years ago. Somebody was followed and they shot him almost in the north. But it would all stem from there. Okay. Last thing I have, and then if you have any comments for me to talk, I'll go to those, and I'll go to what I want to talk about today. Excuse me. Here, talk about yourself amongst yourselves for a moment. Wish I'd made a coffee, but I just had one. Okay. Today, the 25th of January, is the anniversary of the 1999 earthquake, where 70% of Armenia, which were 2-story, no permitting, no regulation structures, collapsed under the earthquake. It's not the same now. Every new building has earthquake requirements and all of that. And this comes up when people ask me about it. Not a single high-rise in Armenia during that earthquake collapsed or received enough damage where they had to take it down. There were a couple that had some non-structural cracks, like if they had, what do you call it, plaster on the outside, on the exterior to pretty it up. There'd be some cracks in there that they could redo, but nothing structural. So the earthquake was horrible in the effect that it had. But as earthquakes go, it wasn't that bad. It's the kind of earthquake that a place that's prepared for it might have had 4 or 5 people die because of some quirk. Something might have fallen or some weird thing. Here they had thousands of people die, but it had to do with them living and doing business in these little 2-story brick structures that were held together by chewing gum, and they just collapsed. Stucco, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if I wonder if I'm getting senile, except I remember stumbling over the right word years ago too. So I don't know. I don't know. You just have to wonder, as I'm getting old enough now, I get heart attacks on a routine basis. Maybe I'll be senile too. I hear they're saying Alzheimer's is being traced to the amount of plastics that accumulate in the body. and that an equal amount go to your organs, but also goes to your brain. That's kind of a scary thought. And here I am drinking out of a plastic bottle. I say it's Tupperware's fault. Okay. So when people talk about Colombia, the conversation almost always drifts towards obvious subjects: politics, safety, cost, visas. It's always the same. It's difficult to go week after week, month after month, year after year, and find topics that vary, because it seems that when people do ask me, it's always these. Can you imagine? I mean, if I did those every week, I mean, they matter, but they aren't what shape daily life here. What actually changes you are the small habits you run into every day, the ones that feel odd at first and slowly start making sense once you stop fighting it. Now, I've lived here since November 2018. No, I think that's Armenia. I think July. It was 2018 going into the fall. So I don't want to say specific, but August, maybe September, something like that. And over time, I've noticed these patterns that don't look efficient on the surface, yet somehow make life calmer and easier. So that you know, for different things in my life, but my last work out of necessity with the cancer was consulting work, which I could do over a laptop with cameras and things like that. And we all have our specific talents. We have our failings. We have talents. And a talent that I've had all my life, I could go in to see a situation and kind of instantly recognize it and see the problem. I've always been very good at that. And so I turned it into, when I was bedridden for those years, I turned it into a consulting business, because I could have them send me videos or show me cameras and do some interviews and things like that. And I could recognize it even without being there and make money doing it. So when I got to Colombia, it was driving me crazy, because those things, it wasn't about work, it's how I think. And I would go into any business that was run poorly, and I'd be there analyzing it, keeping it to yourself, because, people just get pissed off. But I always had that thing running. And when you go to Ecuador and then Colombia, it doesn't want to shut off, because it's just constantly going crazy. And so it was a real adjustment for me in particular. It is for everybody, I think, but for me in particular, having this, I don't know, it's probably some version of OCD. I don't know what it is, probably some sort of mental illness. But having this thing running in the background constantly is unsettling. And it took me some time to get a grasp on what was really going on. Why do they do the things that they do? A lot of Colombians have been to the United States and seen things differently. Of course, maybe they didn't see well-run places, because that used to be a rarity. It became more common, but at a time that was a rarity. So they must know some of these things. Well, it turns out that they do, but it's all cultural. I mean, just from the start, even the basic one that we all know. When you first go into a business, people just don't jump right into the business. You don't walk up to the counter and immediately state your problem. You greet the person, you acknowledge them early on. I didn't always do that. I almost never did that. And I could walk into an office in a hurry, ask my question right away, and get very cold, almost a non-response, sometimes ignored. It's not like it was hostile, But obviously, they just didn't want to deal with me. Then I eventually, those living here know what I'm talking about. You kind of stop and reset, and you go in and it's buenos dias, and everything changes. Smiles start glowing, and whatever your level of Spanish is, it's like, how are you today? Even if you use English, you do nice things, you smile, you do the niceties, because they like to spend a few minutes talking in circles around the real topic. They dance around things. They don't hit it straight on. We hit it straight on. It's bred into us. It's more efficient. It's more clear. It's more direct. It's more honest from our point of view. From their point of view, it's abrasive. It's rude. The greeting, it's more than just ceremony. It's aligning. It's once you're aligned with them, you're in the same place with them. All of a sudden, things start to move. Another thing constantly is a la orden. At first, you treat it like it's a promise. I assumed it meant everything was handled. But over time, you learn it means something more realistic. It means the person is here, he's paying attention, and he's willing to try. Sometimes they can help, sometimes they can't, but the signal is about cooperation. It's not about telling you they'll take care of it, which is what I thought, because language isn't interpreted in only one way also. So once I stopped interpreting it, particularly as some sort of guarantee, and started hearing it as willingness to help, my expectations got very different, and I stopped being frustrated about it. Because a lot of times those promises in the US, you get the promise and you find out later that they didn't do anything. Well, here I think they just kind of pre-program that. I'll do what I can. Well, you've got them willing to cooperate. That's a win. It's a win. It's better than being ignored. And then, of course, and some of these people, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, so I'm probably boring you, but time works differently here. And that was a bigger adjustment for me, maybe for you too. Appointments slide. Any process takes longer. Early on, I caught myself looking at my phone, checking the clock, getting nervous, feeling anxious, because we live by the clock in the US, at least in my world and in business. I mean, if you're not early, you're late kind of thing. And I guess it's something that feels maybe similar to anxiety as you're watching that clock. It feels like something's going wrong. But then you look around, you realize nobody else is wound up. They're calm, they're talking, they're completely unbothered. It's normal. See, the priority here, and I mentioned this, I think, last week, it's not about protecting the schedule at all. The priority is keeping the interaction human. And once I stopped trying to impose my own clock discipline on every situation, my days got noticeably smoother. A few weeks back, you mentioned you bought an espresso machine that you really like. What brand model is it? It's a Ninja. I can talk about it a little later. Somebody remind me. I'll start bragging about it. I'll start talking about a friend of mine, Carlos, came over, had a cup of coffee out of it because I wanted to show it off. So I had my coffee and I had that machine. And he's I think a couple of years older than I am. And I thought he was kidding at first, but he sincerely said it was the best cup of coffee he'd ever had in his entire life. and he drinks a lot of coffee. So that was very cool. Uh, Part was my coffee, of course, but part of it was that machine. I mean, it's all right. Anyway, so one thing that still stands out to me is how people here, they almost never get panicked. Power goes out, water cuts off, the internet drops, a delivery doesn't arrive. The first reaction is, so what could it be? But they don't get angry. In the US, internet goes off, power goes off, and you'll have a fair number of people start throwing stuff. It's just like, God damn it, da, 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 da. Not now. I'll be late for whatever. And it's just so different here. And people here, they look calmly, look for a workaround before they look for someone to blame. Now, they do love to blame, but that's another thing. And that's a different category. Colombia has lived through real instability. Minor disruptions don't trigger emergency mode. That calm spreads and it keeps small problems from turning into emotional ones. Repair culture is another difference. When something breaks, the default reaction isn't to throw it away. Shoes get fixed or even made. Appliances get opened up and taken to the local guy. Furniture gets patched or recovered. Electronics will go away for a day and come back working somehow, some miracle. You always got that miracle worker down in El Centro that can fix anything. The first time I watched something I would have just replaced without thinking get repaired, it kind of clicked. It keeps skills alive. It keeps the money local. It keeps people capable. They're closer to the basics. And I swear, the more conveniences that we have, the further we get away from survival. And people have lived on survival here through a lot of difficult years. And that's a certain confidence that comes with knowing that things can be fixed, even if they can't fix it themselves. There's a whole mindset to that. And that's when I really gravitated towards. I really appreciated that. Neighborhood stores, a tienda. These small tiendas, they're not just, they're more than what you think. It's just a local store. It's more than that. They're part of the infrastructure. They adapt quickly. They know their customers. They keep life moving when larger systems stall out. There's been moments where bigger supply chains struggle, like pandemic. And those little stores adjusted immediately. Small systems bend, big systems break. The tienda is a huge part of the community. You didn't get paid today for whatever reason, but you need to have something. You go to your local tienda, they know you. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. We'll see you next Friday. That kind of thing. When I grew up, that happened in the US all the time in upstate New York. That was a routine thing. One of my best friends, when I was maybe around 9 years old, there was a store. It was about a mile away, and I would walk there every day. And the lady who ran the store, Mrs. Khan, Kahn, Mrs. Khan, I don't know how old she was. In my eyes, when I'm 9 years old, she must have been 80 years old. Her husband had died, and they had this little general store, little bell when you open the door, candy counter, barrel with pickles. I guess I'm pretty old. And I would go in, and she would give me a Tootsie Roll, and I would look at the rack of comic books. And every so often, I would I'd find a dime, and I could buy a comic book. She actually had these three for 15 cents. So you'd see the one in the front, but you didn't really see the ones in the back. So you want a superhero one, and one of them is the Archies. Well, yeah, but it's probably my first instance of gambling. Maybe that's why I'm not a gambler. But she was awesome, and people would come in there all the time with this problem or that problem. She had a little book, and she would just write it down and say, "Don't worry about it." And from what I understand, back in that time, people didn't stiff her either. They might have a problem. It might take a little bit, but they'd always come back and they'd always take care of her. That's lost in the United States, but that's alive and well here. And you see them by the tens of thousands all over Colombia. Communication in general is just softer. There's no direct confrontation. Occasionally you might see it, but that's such a rarity. I mean, it's intentionally avoided. No, it kind of gets rounded off. You don't get direct no's. As a matter of fact, that's what frustrates people. You stop and you ask a Colombian for direction, they will never tell you that they don't know. They'll make something up if they have to, because they don't want to be disagreeable. The intention is good. The results are disastrous sometimes, but disagreements in general get expressed very gently, very cautiously, danced around. And early on, that indirectness really bothered me. It felt like dishonesty. I talked about it, the heart attack with the doctors, where they didn't tell me certain things. It's a cultural thing. It's not dishonesty. They will always tell you the positive thing because they don't want to be part of anything negative. It is the positive things are possible, even if it's only a 10% chance. But over time, you see how daily conflicts here in Colombia that could be conflicts don't even happen. I don't know how to exactly word this. In the US, you see people bickering all the time. It could be marriage partners. It could be in a store, in a shop. Something's not quite right. And people just kind of go at each other. And you just don't see that here, because every disagreement here needs to be settled in the kindest of ways. In the US, you got to settle it head on. But here, not every correction needs force behind it. Life stays calmer and quieter. Mr. Bud Bean, I will certainly answer that shortly. I'm almost done here. None of these habits look impressive on paper. I mean, they won't show up in a relocation checklist, but they lower stress, reduce friction, and make daily life easier to live inside. One of the things you hear from people all the time is, all right, I got here, I'm retired. I've never been so relaxed. I don't have any stress. It's not just because you're retired, although that's a big part of it, but it's not just because of that. Because if you were living in a culture like in the US or Canada, you would still be picking up stress, even if it's not with you directly, by going into a store and watching somebody rant and rave about something. And we've all seen this because it's what happens. We've seen the Karens, just insanely go at something, and you wonder why. It's not that important. You don't see that here. And so it's not just that you might be retired, it's that you're surrounded by this serenity. So it lowers stress and friction and makes daily life so much easier to live. Once these habits sink in, going back to a place where everything is urgent and transactional and tense, it becomes far less appealing. One of the reasons why even with a free ticket, I no, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. It's not it's not necessarily one's right or wrong. I'm just explaining the changes that I went through and where they came from. And for me, it was a good thing because I lived my life under constant stress, mostly self-inflicted, but stress nonetheless. All right, so I got a couple questions I referred to. Let's see. Must be room admin. Oh, hold on. Disappearing. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. A few weeks back, you mentioned you bought the espresso machine. It's a Ninja. It's the first one that came out. There is a second one with a number of improvements, and they're not. Well, I guess they're cheap when you're looking at these kind of all-inclusive machines. Um, but for me, it was I couldn't afford it, and I've explained this before. But what happened was this company had put it on sale for half price, and it was I think it was the day before Black Friday. I think this was an error. And then when Black Friday hit, it got discounted 50% more. And so now all of a sudden this thing became affordable. And so I bought it just like that. The day after Black Friday, it shot up to full price again. I think it was a mistake. I know that Ninja was subsidizing 49% to give incentive for people to discount for whatever their marketing was. I think what it was is somebody at this place put it on sale a day ahead of time, and then it just automatically got changed on the day it was supposed to. I only saw it in this one company. Nobody else was selling it this cheap. I scored. I didn't realize at the time what was going on, but right away, the day after, I kind of figured it out. And it's awesome. I mean, you put just to kind of explain quickly, you put can't think of the coffee holder thingy. You put it in, and it's got a little thing so you don't get any crumbs or anything. It measures the moisture and it weighs the amount of coffee going in. So you don't have to do any of that beforehand. It doesn't set the grinder, but it tells you the setting of the grinder for the coffee and the moisture level that you're using. So you set it to what it tells you. You grind the coffee, then you put the thing in and you make the coffee. It's also got an automatic milk frother. All you have to do is put the milk in, and after the coffee, the espresso comes out, you just press the button for the frother. When it's done, you pour it in. It's unbelievably simple, but what's cool about it is the machine is dead on accurate. So every single cup of coffee that I've had since I got it is identical to the last one. I've never experienced that before. Even in coffee shops, I've never experienced that. So that's the biggest part of it. Anyway, if only we had saved some of those old comic books. Yeah, really. I think about that because I've had some that I saw later say, "Oh, this comic book is worth." Yeah. Lauren, on your map of Armenia, where does the North Armenia begin? It begins at my building. My building is at the very end. Let me put up the map. Okay. This map isn't showing it all. Let me try something else here. Let me bear with me here. Call this up. All right. And screen, Google Maps. Okay. Let me look, see. Where is it? There we go. Okay. So here is Armenia. It's not an exact thing, but approximately, if you could see the mouse, runs right through here is the basic divide. This is central. Some of this is considered north. Like I say, it's not like here's north, here's south, but it's blended. But this is somewhat the border. And I live where this blue dot is up here. If you're on your phone, you might not be able to see this, but this blue dot, that's where I live. I live in the very last building of Armenia. And so where does the north begin? It's here. If you go, I don't know, handful of yards further north than my building, then it becomes the town of Circassia. And right in front of my building is the return. It's a 4-lane, and it's got a return that goes, doubles back around, going back the other direction. So that's where the north begins. And so all of this is considered to be the north. Hopefully that's what you were asking me. Is it true many Colombians have told me I'm too uptight? And one from Armenia telling me that I'm the most negative person she has ever met. We come across that way because as compared to their culture, it's true. We see it as we're just being realistic. When I don't want to beat certain things to death like my health, but if somebody would ask me what my, why'd you go to the hospital? And I'd say, well, this happened. And just the way I would phrase it, oh, don't say that. What do you mean don't say that? You asked me. That's what happened. They don't want to hear anything like that. They want you to respond in a positive way. I went. It was just a minor thing, and everything's fine, and change its subject to something else. Well, okay, but don't ask me that. Ask me something else. See, we just see it differently. Where did you buy your Ninja? Mercado Libre, the Colombian Amazon, where I get most things, actually. I have now seen people arguing over correct change, pennies, since they're going away. Oh, in the US, they stopped pennies, didn't they? Trivial crap now becomes stress, especially for us that are forced to watch. US loves to complain. Yeah, well, I think it's always been that way. There's positives and negatives. There's reasons behind it. I think the U.S. is going through a time where it's particularly bad and obnoxious. It's gone overboard. But the way we view things, the way we tackle things, suit the way we live. I mean, our jobs hold huge importance to the point that a lot of people end up getting divorced because of a particular job you might have. But your job is part of it's your career. Maybe your family's more important, but you're more willing to let something drop to the side. Maybe you postponed a vacation, or maybe you sent the family on a vacation but you just decided it'd be best if you didn't go. You would never see that happen here. It's just different. Their priorities are different than our priorities. Theirs are better in some ways in some situations, and ours may be. If you want productivity and efficiency, the U.S. has got it all over South America. Except that's not everything in life, and that's a lesson that I should have known. I just used that vacation thing. I've done that before. Oh, this is really important. I'll tell you what, it's like, I love you guys, but I don't want to take a vacation away from you. So I'm going to stay here and work, and you go, and I do something extra to compensate, it, but I wasn't there with them. And that was important to them. And to me, I thinking it's a vacation that's important to them. My head wasn't screwed on right. I didn't, I a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. When I say guys, it's not gender specific. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We allowed those things to happen. It's part of how we succeed. It's part of how we would grow and accomplish more. It's part of how we're a better provider for that family, for the nice house and the food and things. But then we separate emotionally to some extent. I'm kind of a lump of coal. I have feelings, but I'm horrible at expressing them. And so it's easier for me to ignore them than to awkwardly try to express them. And so when you're trying to have family life, it makes it very difficult. It's probably why I had 2 divorces. Well, not exact, maybe one of them. One was probably me. The other one was absolutely not me. But you guys know what I'm saying. And those are things that are just almost never contended with here. If I were to tell those stories to a group of Colombians, they would look at me like I'm from Mars. Are you serious? Why? Why would you? You must be a horrible person. Well, yeah, maybe I'm a horrible person, but that's how many, if not most of us are in those particular situations. The something coffee making butts have arrived. Huh? Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it is kind of a, well, it definitely is computerized. It's definitely computerized. It's not AI, but it's probably out there already. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bud Bean. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are you back in Colombia, or are you still in the US? Okay. And if you're back in Colombia, next time you get an apartment, learn from the last time. If you know what I'm talking about. All right. Any other questions before we wrap it up for the day? Did you like my lead-in songs today? Non-copyright music. And here I'm in Rumble where they don't care that much, but I'm doing that experiment. I'm doing that experiment with YouTube. So the things broadcast on YouTube, I've got only one person each coffee time that's actually watched it on YouTube. But what's interesting is even the non-copyright music, I've been flagged several times already by YouTube for music that is not even remotely copyrighted. Anyway, enough of that. I guess I don't have any football to go watch because I could care less about what it is. And it seems like my team, who has been awesome for a decade, is falling apart. So I don't know. What should I do? I can leave the house, so maybe I'll go out for a walk. All right. So I guess that's it. We're going to wrap it up for today. I will see you next week. Ciao.
Wow.